What's going on, Detroit Lions fans? Welcome back, Detroit Den 3 and 3 with Steve. Hey, I got a good episode for you guys today. This is a little segment I feel like I probably should have been doing a little while ago, but it's not too late. And I'll probably just carry this out for the rest of preseason. I don't want to do it during the season. I don't like to critique players too harshly, but I feel like when there's some guys on the bubble, we could talk about some stock options. Let's see if we're buying into these guys or if you guys are selling. I want to get you guys involved. I want to get your guys' opinion. So please leave some comments down below. Real quick, something I've noticed is I've been watching more and more preseason games of other teams. I was watching the Packers and the Broncos last night, and I've been watching the Bears with them being on Hard Knocks and some other stuff. I've been watching pretty much whatever I can get my hands on if it comes to football. And there's something that I've noticed, and I don't mean to just say this just because I'm a Detroit Lions fan, but I've noticed that our tackling has been very, very elite these last couple preseason games. We haven't missed any tackles. We're really locking when we're hitting guys, we're pretty much putting them on the ground. I watched, like I said, I've been watching some other games and I see some sloppy tackling, and I want to say that this is all contributing to Dan Campbell and the way he's running practice. We're putting pads on and we're doing tackling drills, and I don't think a lot of other teams are doing that. This is more of an old school mentality, whereas most teams are trying to stay that safe route. And I get it. There's a risk and a reward, but I do want to give a shout out to Dan Campbell, man, because I feel like that's a contributor for why the Detroit Lions have looked so good tackling lately. It's because we're putting the pads on. We're doing those tackling drills. And you know the saying, the motto for the season, it takes more. If you want to get to the Super Bowl, we got to do a little bit more to get there. And I think that that's a contributor. And just real quick before I get into this, the meat and potatoes of this episode, but that NFC Championship game just kind of resonates with me because we missed a lot of tackles in that game. So I think that's something that we went back and looked at, and we said, hey, let's get these guys ready in preseason. So shout out to DC. Just a little something I noticed. Let me know if you guys agree, disagree in the comments. Now, what I'm going to do today, like I said, I'm going to be talking about some players, so I think their stock is rising. Full disclaimer, I'm not going to mention Sione Vaki or Isaiah Williams. I've already talked about those guys. Stock are through the roof. So if you're expecting to hear those names, I get it. They should be on the list, but due to the fact that I've been talking about them pretty heavy the last couple of days, I'm leaving them off. But number one, right off the rip, I got to mention Hendon Hooker. I think his stock is through the roof right now. The last couple of weeks, I've been saying that I don't think he's earned quarterback 2. I think the other day he did earn quarterback 2. I think he was the most exciting player on the field, whether or not that was because of hype or actual gameplay. That's kind of up to you guys. But I set my emotions aside and I just look at film. I do the eye test and the stat test. He looked the part. He looked good. He looked comfortable. He made some good throws. Missed one dumb throw, but we'll just say that he was chalked up. We'll chalk that up to have a little jitters on the road. Kansas City, there could be some distractions there for a guy who's really just kind of coming into the league. So I think Hendon Hooker stock is through the roof. I think right now today I'm more comfortable. If something were to happen to Jared Goff, I can throw Hendon Hooker in there, and the train will just keep running, and it'll keep running very effectively because we're seeing Hendon Hooker with third stringers. And we're seeing Hendon Hooker with a very, very limited playbook. Going back and rewatching that game, like I said, I talked about this on our post-game show, you could tell that the first game against the Giants, we wanted to get him out of the pocket on the move, let him use his athleticism. And I noticed in the Kansas City games, it was mostly stay in the pocket, get the ball out quick, hit your checkdowns. The receivers are running a lot of mesh routes, so there's really not a lot of confusion on reads. It's just it was a very, very bland offense, but it still was exciting to watch Hendon Hooker out there. I think the Lions were just kind of playing it safe, and that's the right thing to do when a guy who just came out of concussion protocol, you don't want him to go right back in. So I did notice that with Hendon Hooker, seeing him with the threes and being very explosive. If something were to happen with Jared Goff and we had to bring in Hendon Hooker for 2, 3, maybe 4 games to just kind of carry the load, depending on what the injury was to Goff. And we don't want to go down that road. We don't want Goff to get hurt. But I feel more comfortable today than I did last week. I'll say that. I'm sleeping a little bit better at night, knowing that we have a good contingency in place in that scenario. seeing Hendon Hooker with St. Brown, J-Mo, Sam Laporta, the running game, a better offensive line is very exciting, but I don't want to see it just yet. We'll talk about that in the future. But right now, I'm just ready for JG to get some snaps. Maybe we see him Saturday. I don't know. But I think Hendon Hooker, other than Sione Vaki and Isaiah Williams, I thought Hendon Hooker was the star of the show, player of the game, obviously. He's very exciting to watch. I think his stock is through the roof. If you're into investing, I'd start buying that Hendon Hooker stock now because it's only going to be more expensive the longer you wait. Second on my list, Matthew Betts. I thought Matthew Betts had a very good game. Like I said, it's hard to catch everything when you're watching the game live. So later Saturday night, wife was out of town. I took the dog for a walk, came back, made a little drink, rewatched the game, focusing on some more defensive stuff because I was pretty heavy on offense while I was watching it live. Matthew Betts, I feel like he's a bubble player. I don't know if he's going to make this team, but I feel like he had a good game. If he has another good game against the Steelers this weekend, he's going to be a tough decision for Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes. What are you going to do with them? I think he's a pure pass rusher. I don't think he offers a whole lot in the run game. He's not stout, as Will said the other day, and I'd have to agree. He's not a dominant run defender. But if you bring him in on 3rd and 11, 3rd and 7, where it's a known passing down, I feel like that's where he's going to thrive. You got to put these guys in positions where they're going to be successful. We saw some unsuccessfulness with James Houston in the passing game, but I feel like that was a test a couple weeks ago. That's why he graded so poorly. You don't want to put these guys out of a position where they're not comfortable. Matthew Betts is a pass rusher. There's nothing wrong with it. Now, again, whether or not he makes his team, I don't know. That's a tough decision. If he has another really good game against the Steelers, it's going to be hard to cut him. But I know a lot of people were excited when we signed him from the Canadian League. And I was kind of like, man, I don't know. Like, this is the NFL. It's a step up in competition. Everyone's big. Everyone's fast. I don't really know what's going on over there in Canada. I'm not really familiar with all the rules. Don't care. I'm an NFL guy. I'm a Detroit Lions fan. If you can come here and you can help the Detroit Lions win a Super Bowl, I'm all for you being on this team. But I feel like Matthew Betts he's a one-trick pony. Not when it comes to his pass rush, but just being a pass rusher. And again, nothing wrong with that. I don't mean to make it sound like it's a bad thing, because when I was watching the game Saturday, I thought he was very explosive. He was very athletic. Even when he was getting blocked by a tackle, you could tell that the tackle was having a hard time. He was having his hands full. Like, Matthew Betts was giving him all he could handle. The sack that he had on Carson Wentz, I believe it was in the second quarter, absolutely ate his lunch. He was there before the ball even hit Carson Wentz's chest on the snap, and he absolutely put him right in the dirt. Clean tackle, exactly how you teach a kid to tackle. Drive him through the ground. Don't land on top of him. It was a textbook tackle, in my opinion, especially for a sack where everything happens boom, boom. It was a very fast play. I don't know. Again, Matthew Betts, man, I'm not sure he's making this team. I don't know. He really has to. I think he has to at least take the game he had against the Kansas City Chiefs and elevate it a little bit against the Steelers. And it's going to be tough because the Steelers have some mobile quarterbacks. We're very familiar with Justin Fields. We're familiar with Russell Wilson. These guys have been in the league for a long time. We'll have to just see, because they got some quarterbacks that can move in the pocket, not like Carson Wentz, who's just mostly going to stand there. We didn't really see too many mobile quarterbacks on Saturday. I know the Chiefs threw every quarterback on their depth chart at us, and none of them were really scrambling or running around. So this Saturday is going to be a different test, I feel like, and we'll talk about that more in our game day show. Next, one of my favorite players, man. I've been cheering for this guy for a long time, all the way back to his Kentucky days, Josh Paschal. If you guys know me, you've been following me long enough, or you're familiar with me personally, the Kentucky Wildcats have a little place in my heart. I got some family ties there. My Army roommate, my best friend, the best man in my wedding lives down there. So I always keep tabs on the Kentucky Wildcats in basketball, football. So whenever we get a Wildcat on our team, probably going to be one of my favorite players. So that's what Josh Paschal is, man. And this dude has a great story. Cancer survivor. This dude's a warrior, man. And I've been waiting for him to break out. And he's been a good player for us. He's been solid. But I thought he had a really good game the other day too. And he's one of the only players that played Saturday who I know he's not a starter, but Josh Paschal gets very, very significant playing time in regular season games. Whereas most of the guys who we saw Saturday were second and third stringers, or guys fighting to make the team. So to have Paschal out there with that experience, I thought that was an opportunity for him to thrive. He played the whole game, had a huge strip sack at the end of the game that gave the Detroit Lions a chance to really win the game. And then Hendon Hooker went out and fumbled. We caused a 3-and-out. good punt return by Isaiah Williams. We end up winning with a walk-off field goal. So all was well. But I thought Josh Paschal was solid in the run game, had some pressures, and he had that big sack at the end of the game to give the Detroit Lions a chance. So honorable mention. Those are my three. Honorable mention. I wanted to just keep it to three guys. And when I was sitting here looking at the roster and going through the depth chart and some of my notes, kind of putting it all together, it was hard for me to leave Khalil Dorsey off of this list. And he is a very, very honorable mention. I thought he had a hell of a game. He was sticky in coverage, great in coverage. And he had my favorite play of the game where he blew up a bubble screen to Kadarius Toney for a loss of, I think, 4 or 5. He absolutely just shut that down. Went right around a blocker, stuffed the play, tackle for loss. Khalil Dorsey had a phenomenal game, and I mentioned Kendall Vildor too. I don't want to disrespect anybody, but I know Kendall Vildor has some bad memories for Lions fans. But I thought he played pretty good Saturday too. But those are my main three guys. You can't talk about stock being up any higher than Hendon Hooker. Matthew Betts is something you can buy really low, and you could sell it really high. And Josh Paschal's just the reliable stock option, in my opinion. So those are my three guys. Leave it in the comments. Let me know how you feel. Let me know how you feel about that Dan Campbell and how he's running practice, if that's paying dividends with how great we're looking tackling. I hope we didn't just jinx ourselves. Hopefully we keep that train rolling, guys. So leave it in the comments. Stick around. Hit that like button. Subscribe. I'll be back later with another show.